Evan Cross had lived alone on a dead world for 7 long years. The planet was silent, dry, and covered in gray dust that never stopped moving. Old ruins stood like broken teeth across the land, reminders of a war that ended everything. Evan did not speak to anyone. He did not even expect anyone to ever find him. Every morning he woke up, checked his small farm, fixed his machines, and tried to keep his mind from breaking. Silence was the only friend he had left. That night, the wind was worse than usual. Dust storms slammed against his metal shelter, making it groan like a giant animal in pain. Evan sat by the heater, eating a simple meal, when he heard something. Impossible. A knock on the door. He froze. A knock. 3 clear hits. Someone was outside. No one should be here. No humans, no aliens, no life at all. The planet was marked as dead and forgotten. Evan's chest tightened. His first thought was that maybe he was finally losing his mind. But then the knock came again. Harder this time. The sound echoed through the entire room. Evan grabbed his old rifle, the same one he promised he would never touch again. He moved slowly toward the door, each step heavy with fear and disbelief. His fingers shook as he unlocked the top bolt. The third knock came, loud and impatient. Evan opened the door just a little, and his eyes widened. 3 alien huntresses stood outside in the storm, tall and powerful, their armor made from bone and dark steel. Their eyes glowed like predators watching prey. Dust blew around them, but they did not seem to care. These were warriors known across the galaxy, killers, trackers, human hunters. They had no reason to come here. They had no reason to find him. Evan pointed his rifle at them. "What do you want?" The tallest huntress stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but something in her tone felt urgent. "We did not come to kill you, human." Then she pushed 3 small shapes toward him. Evan lowered his gun in confusion. At first he thought the shapes were shadows. But then he saw small hands, small faces, and trembling eyes. 3 children, alien-human hybrid children. Their skin was pale but warm, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark, the same way the huntress's eyes did. The storm howled, shaking the ground, but the children did not move. They simply stared at Evan as if they knew him. "Take them," the huntress leader said. "They are yours." Evan's heart jumped. "Mine? What are you talking about? I've never seen you before." But the children stepped forward and held onto his clothes like they already knew him. The smallest one whispered something in a soft, broken voice. "Father, please." Evan felt the world tilt. His breath caught. None of this made sense. He lived alone. He never left this planet. He never met these huntresses. So how could these children be his? Before he could ask anything else, a deep growl shook the ground. The huntresses snapped around, weapons raised. Fear flashed across their faces, real fear. Even Evan felt the vibration under his feet. Something huge was out there. Something dangerous. Something hunting them. The huntress leader grabbed Evan's arm. "Let us in. Now." Evan looked at the children, small, shaking, hiding behind him. Ground shook again. A roar echoed across the ruins, so loud it made the metal walls tremble. The huntress whispered, "They are coming for the children." Evan had 2 choices: shut the door and stay safe, or protect 3 children who claimed he was their father. He stepped aside. "Get in." And the moment they entered, the real nightmare began. Evan shut the heavy metal door behind them just as another roar shook the ground. Dust fell from the ceiling. The small lights in the shelter flickered. The 3 huntresses moved quickly, checking windows, scanning shadows, and preparing weapons. Even inside the shelter, they looked tense, as if danger could burst through the walls at any second. The 3 children stayed close to Evan. They were small, maybe 5 or 6 years old, and each one looked different. One boy had silver hair that glowed faintly. The girl with short dark hair had small glowing lines running down her arms. The youngest girl had big bright eyes that changed color with her emotions. All three of them watched Evan with a strange mix of fear and trust. Evan knelt in front of them. "Why did you call me father?" The smallest girl took his hand and placed it against her cheek. "Because you are." Evan felt his chest tighten. He looked at the Huntresses. "Explain, now." The leader, tall and scarred, stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but her eyes showed guilt. "These children were created using human DNA, your DNA," Evan blinked. "That's impossible." "I never agreed," she said quietly. "We know. But during the war, your DNA was taken from a medical base. It was used in a secret project to create hybrid children who can survive any world, any attack, any environment." Evan's stomach turned. "You made children out of me?" The Huntress nodded. "Yes, but these three, they are special. They are the last survivors. The others did not live." The children's hands tightened around Evan's clothes. "We were made to be strong," the silver-haired boy whispered. "But we are scared." Evan looked at the Huntresses. "Why bring them here? Why bring them to me?" The Huntress leader took a deep breath. "Because the project was shut down. A powerful enemy now hunts them. The Void Reavers want the children for their power. They will never stop until they take them. We could not protect the children anymore. So we brought them to the only parent they have." Evan shook his head. "I'm not a parent. I live on a dead world. I have nothing." The Huntress stepped closer. "You have something we do not. You have humanity. These children need that. They need a father, not soldiers." Another deep tremor shook the shelter. A long, sharp scream echoed outside, something alien and hungry. The children whimpered. The smallest girl hid her face in Evan's chest. Evan slowly wrapped his arms around them. He did not understand what was happening. He did not know if this was a trick, a trap, or some terrible mistake. But the children felt real. Their fear felt real. Their hands gripping his coat felt real. He looked into their glowing eyes and saw something he had not seen in 7 years. Hope. He swallowed hard. "If what you're saying is true, why are the Void Reavers after them?" The Huntress leader answered, "Because the children have abilities even we do not understand. They can shape energy. They can survive any climate. They can heal faster than any species, and they are still growing." Evan stared at the children, shocked. The dark-haired girl lifted her hand. A small spark of blue light appeared above her. Palm, soft, warm, almost like fire, but quiet. "We don't want to hurt anyone," she said. "We want to stay alive." The Huntresses exchanged nervous glances. More roars echoed outside, louder, closer. Something scraped against the outer wall. The leader looked at Evan with urgency. "We must move soon. The Reavers have found us." Evan tightened his grip on the children. He had lived alone for years. He had avoided war, pain, and loss. But now 3 small lives leaned on him, whether he liked it or not. He was their only chance. The shelter shook again, harder than before, as if something huge had slammed into the outer wall. The lights flickered, then steadied. The Huntresses instantly raised their weapons, their bodies tense and ready. Even they, the strongest hunters in the galaxy, looked frightened. Evan moved the children behind him, keeping one hand on them and the other on his rifle. The air felt heavy, thick with danger. Every breath tasted like dust and fear, a deep rumbling. Sound came from outside, slow, steady footsteps, each one shaking the floor. The youngest girl clung to Evan's leg, whispering, "It's here." Evan swallowed hard. "What is it?" The Huntress leader answered quietly, "A Void Reaver, one of the largest ones. It must have tracked us through the storm." Evan had heard stories long ago, creatures born from the darkest parts of dead stars. built like living armor, almost impossible to kill. They hunted anything alive, but they were especially drawn to powerful energy. Like the energy inside hybrid children, he never imagined one would come here. A metal beam fell from the ceiling as the footsteps grew louder. The walls creaked. The shelter was strong, but it was never made to handle something like this. Suddenly, a huge impact hit the side of the building. Boom. Dust exploded everywhere. The children screamed. Evan covered them with his body as another impact hit. The Huntresses shouted commands to each other in their alien language. One of them ran to the back of the room and activated a defensive shield. Generator, a small, glowing device that spread a transparent energy field across the wall. But the Void Reaver struck again. This time, the wall cracked open. A massive claw tore through the metal like paper. Long, sharp black nails scraped across the floor. The creature's arm alone was bigger than Evan. Its skin was dark, pulsing with purple veins. Cold air rushed in through the hole. Then the monster's face appeared, huge, terrifying, with 6 glowing eyes and a wide mouth filled with rows of jagged teeth. It let out a scream that shook the entire shelter. The sound was so strong Evan felt it in his bones. The Huntresses opened fire. Red and blue blasts hit the creature's head, but the monster barely reacted. It pushed harder, ripping the wall wider. The children cried. The smallest girl hugged Evan tightly. "Help us, Father." Something inside Evan snapped, fear turning into anger. He pulled out an old explosive he kept hidden for emergencies and tossed it at the creature's face. Boom! The explosion pushed the Void Reaver back a few steps. Smoke filled the air. The Huntresses used the moment to shoot again, trying to slow it down, but the Reaver roared and charged forward. It broke through the wall completely, landing inside the shelter. The floor cracked under its weight. Its huge tail smashed through a table. Its claws scraped the ground, ready to strike. A Huntress jumped in front of the children, but the Reaver swung its arm and threw her across the room like a toy. Evan shouted, "Stay behind me," and fired his rifle at the creature's eyes. The monster screamed, but kept moving. Then something unexpected happened. The silver-haired boy stepped out from behind Evan. His small hands shook, but his eyes glowed bright white. "No," Evan shouted. "Get back." But the boy lifted his hands, and a wave of light shot out. The energy blast hit the Void Reaver square in the chest. The monster flew backward, smashing into the far wall so hard the entire room shuddered. The Reaver let out a broken, confused sound, then stumbled to its feet. Smoke rose from its armor-like skin. The boy fell to his knees, exhausted. The youngest girl ran to him and hugged him. The Huntresses stared at the children with wide eyes. The power is growing, but Evan didn't care about powers. He cared about the fact that his child, a small boy, had just saved them all. The creature shook itself, ready to attack again. Evan picked up the boy, held him close, and whispered, "I've got you. I won't let anything happen to you." The Huntress leader stepped beside him, weapon ready. "The Reaver knows the children are here," she said. "More will come." Evan looked at the broken wall, the dust storm outside, and the glowing eyes of the injured monster. His quiet, lonely life was over. Now, he had a war inside his home. The broken wall let in cold wind and swirling dust. The Void Reaver, though wounded, still paced outside in the storm like a wild beast deciding its next attack. Its glowing eyes cut through the darkness, watching the shelter, waiting for the right moment. The roar it released shook the metal frame, but for now, it did not enter. Inside, the children sat close together, trembling. The smallest girl kept rubbing her eyes, scared and confused. The silver-haired boy tried to stay strong, but his breathing was uneven after using his strange energy power. Evan placed a warm blanket around them and checked them one by one, making sure they weren't hurt. The Huntresses watched from a distance, their faces unreadable. They were warriors made for battle, But when they looked at the children, fear and something like guilt filled their eyes. Evan stood and faced the leader. "Tell me the truth, all of it. Why them? Why me? Why bring children to a dead world where monsters are hunting us?" The leader finally lowered her weapon and took a slow breath. "Because we ran out of time. And because you were the only one left who could protect them." Evan frowned. "Protect them? I'm a farmer on a dead planet." "No," she replied. Softly, "You are more than that." Another huntress stepped forward, younger, with bright silver markings across her cheeks. Her voice shook as she spoke. "We were assigned to the hybrid project. We trained the children. We taught them to survive. But we also saw something our leaders ignored." Evan crossed his arms. "And what was that?" "The young." Huntress's eyes softened. They were not weapons. They were children. They cried. They laughed. They played with each other. They wanted comfort, not war. Evan looked at the kids huddled together and felt something sharp in his heart. The leader continued. "Our society believes strength comes from battle. But these children, they had strength of another kind, emotional strength. Human strength." She looked at Evan with meaning. "Your strength." Evan felt his chest tighten. "But why me? I didn't ask for this." The leader nodded. "No, you did not. But fate chose you anyway. Your DNA was selected because it was stable, adaptable, and showed resilience unmatched by other soldiers. The children were made with your traits, but they were not raised with your values." The young huntress lowered her head. "We tried to protect them. But when the project was discovered by the Reavers, everything changed. The Reavers want the children for their energy. They want to use them or destroy them." The smallest girl crawled toward Evan and tugged gently at his sleeve. "We didn't want to go with them," she whispered. "They were scary. They said we were tools." Evan knelt and placed a hand on her head. "You're not tools. You're kids." Her eyes shimmered with relief that the huntresses exchanged a look, a painful, guilty look. The leader continued. "When we discovered the truth about the Reavers, we knew we had to flee. We stole the children. We broke every rule. Our own people now hunt us too." Evan felt the weight of their words settling on him like heavy armor. "So you came here because you had nowhere else to go." "No," the leader corrected softly. "We came here because the children kept asking for you." Evan blinked. "For me? They didn't even know me." The silver-haired boy lifted his head. We saw your memories." Evan froze. "My memories?" The youngest girl nodded. "They showed us a warm place. Your house. A person who was kind. You." The children had inherited a strange ability. They could feel echoes of his emotions, his past, his pain. Even though they had never met him, Evan's heart twisted in a way he had not felt in years. Outside, the Void Reaver roared again, louder, angrier. The leader gripped her weapon and looked at Evan with fierce determination. "We risked everything to bring them to you, because only you can give them something we cannot." Evan looked down at the children, at their glowing eyes filled with trust and fear. "And what's that?" he asked quietly. The huntress answered, "Home." Asterisk. The storm outside finally weakened, but the broken wall still let in cold air and thin dust. Evan spent the next few hours repairing what he could while the huntresses stood guard. The Void Reaver was gone for now, but everyone knew it was not truly gone. It was only waiting, inside the shelter. The three children sat together, wrapped in blankets. They watched Evan quietly, their glowing eyes following his every move. They were scared, tired, and still shaking from the attack. Evan felt something rise inside him, something he had not felt in years. Responsibility. A strange warmth. A feeling he thought he had lost forever. Care. He walked over to the children, knelt and said softly, "You're safe now, I promise." The silver-haired boy tilted his head. "Why do you protect us? You do not know us." Evan looked at his small hands and answered honestly. Maybe because someone should have protected you long ago. The boy slowly nodded, as if trying to understand a new kind of kindness. Smallest girl touched Evan's shirt and asked, "Father, what do we do now?" Her voice was small and fragile. Evan's heart squeezed. "We learn," he said gently. "We learn how to live." And so they did. The next morning, Evan woke the children early. They blinked at him sleepily, confused but curious. Evan showed them his tiny farm, a few plants growing in controlled soil, surrounded by old machines he had fixed over the years. The girl with glowing markings reached out toward the plants. "They are alive here on this dead world?" Evan smiled. "Yes, even a dead place can grow something if you try." The children listened carefully to everything he taught. How to water the soil, how to fix a pipe, how to turn simple food into a warm meal. For the first time in their lives, they were learning something gentle. The silver-haired boy asked, "Is this what humans do?" "Sometimes," Evan said with a small laugh. "Sometimes we fix things, sometimes we break things, but we always try again." The children nodded as if that was the most important lesson they had ever heard. The Huntresses watched from the side, their expressions softening in a way Evan had never seen. They seemed surprised, maybe even confused, that the children were smiling. Later, Evan cooked a meal. It was simple: vegetables, soft bread, warm water, nothing special. But when he placed the plates in front of the children, they stared at it wide-eyed. "No injections?" the middle girl asked. "No forced feeding?" The boy added. Evan shook his head. "No, just eat." They took small bites at first, then bigger ones, then giggled because the warm food felt new, safe, real. One of the Huntresses whispered to the leader, "They have never eaten like this. They don't even know the taste of comfort." The leader's eyes lowered, heavy with guilt. As the day passed, the shelter became filled with gentle sounds it had not heard in years. Soft laughter, quiet footsteps, children asking questions about everything. Evan repaired machines while the kids followed behind him, copying his movements. When one tool rolled away, the smallest girl chased it, tripped, and fell. Evan rushed to her, but before he could reach her, she looked up and whispered, "Did I do wrong?" Evan shook his head quickly. "No, sweetheart. Falling is normal." She had never heard such words. Her eyes filled with surprise, then relief. The Huntresses slowly approached Evan. "You changed them in one day," the leader said. "We trained them for years, but they never looked like this." Evan glanced at the children building a small tower of metal scraps. Maybe they just needed someone to care. A sudden alarm beeped on the Huntress leader's wrist device. Her face went pale. "What is it?" Evan asked. She swallowed hard. "Ship signatures, many of them, entering the planet's orbit." Evan's heart stopped. "Reavers?" he asked. "And others," she said. "Our own people, too. They found us." Evan looked at the three small children playing quietly, unaware of the danger closing in. He clenched his fists. His lonely world, his quiet life, his new family was about to be invaded. And this time, he knew he would not run. The alarm on the Huntress leader's wrist kept flashing, pulsing like a heartbeat. Red light washed over her sharp features as she stared at the incoming data. Evan felt his breath shorten. He had seen enough battles in his old life to understand what that many signals meant. War. A storm of enemies. And not enough time. "What do you see?" he asked. The Huntress swallowed. "Dozens of ships. Large ones, fast ones. The Reavers sent hunters. And our own people. They are coming from every direction." Evan's chest tightened. "For the kids." "Yes," she whispered. "For their power. For their blood. For what they can become." A cold wind passed through the broken wall, carrying dust and the faint echo of distant engines. The planet, once dead and silent, was suddenly alive with danger. Evan looked at the 3 children sitting on the floor, stacking metal pieces like toys. They were smiling softly, happy for the first time in their lives. They had no idea an army was coming. Evan knelt in front of them. "Kids, we have to move." The silver-haired boy looked up. "Move where, father?" "Somewhere safer." Evan said, "Somewhere they can't reach you." The youngest girl took his hand. "You will stay with us?" Evan nodded without fear, without hesitation. "Always." The Huntress leader stepped closer. "There is an old tunnel system under these ruins. We used it to hide when we landed. If we go now, we might escape the first wave." "Might," Evan repeated. She met his eyes. "The Reavers do not give up, and my people. They want the children alive, not free." A faint hum filled the air. Evan felt it in his bones. He walked outside through the broken wall. The sky wasn't empty anymore. Dark shapes moved among the clouds, ships entering the atmosphere, leaving trails of fire behind them. The wind carried the sound of engines, getting louder every second. The enemy was close. He went back inside. "Grab whatever you need. We leave now." They moved through the ruins quickly, stepping over old stones and broken machines. The Huntresses led the way, weapons drawn. Evan carried the smallest girl, while the 2 older ones held his hands tightly. They were trying to be brave, but their glowing eyes kept darting around in fear. The ground shook as dropships landed in the distance. A loud metallic roar spread across the empty world, Reaver machines awakening. The children pressed closer to Evan. "In here," the leader said, pulling open a metal hatch half buried in dust. "The tunnels go deep under the planet. They were used for mining centuries ago." Evan took the children down first. The air inside was cold and heavy, but safer than outside. Long corridors stretched into darkness. The Huntresses followed and sealed the hatch behind them. For a moment, everything was silent except the children's breathing and the distant echo of engines. They walked deeper into the tunnels. Shadows stretched across the walls like long fingers. Loose stones crunched under their boots. The silver-haired boy whispered, "Father, are we going to die?" Evan squeezed his hand. "Not today." But even he didn't know if that was true. A sudden explosion shook the tunnels. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The youngest girl screamed. The Huntresses raised their weapons. "They found the entrance," the leader said. Another explosion. Then echoes of boots and claws hitting the ground above them. The Reavers weren't searching, they were digging. The Huntress leader turned to Evan. "We'll hold them off here. Take the children deeper." Evan's heart pounded. "No, you're not dying for us." "It is not death," she said. "It is duty." But Evan shook his head. Something fierce, something unbreakable grew inside him. "We fight together." The tunnels shook again. The ceiling cracked. A glowing claw sliced through the rock above them. The Reavers were almost inside. The children huddled behind Evan. The Huntresses spread out, ready to face whatever dropped into the darkness. Evan lifted his weapon. He had once lived alone on a dead world. Now he stood between his children and the monsters hunting them. "Come on," he whispered into the darkness. "Let's see how brave you really are." The battle was coming, and this time, he wasn't fighting for survival. He was fighting for family. The ceiling above them cracked a second time. Sharp pieces of rock rained down, forcing Evan to cover the children with his arms. The tunnels trembled like the planet itself was afraid. The Huntresses raised their weapons, backs straight, eyes bright with battle instinct. They were ready to give their lives, but Evan was not ready to lose anyone. A loud tearing sound ripped through the stone overhead. A huge claw burst through the ceiling, followed by a low, shaking growl. The Void Reavers had reached them. The Huntress leader shouted, "Positions! Protect the children!" But Evan moved before she could finish. He lifted the smallest girl and pushed the other two behind him. "Stay close. Do not let go of me." The kids clung to him, shaking. The silver-haired boy whispered, "Father, I don't want to be taken." "They won't," Evan said, voice steady and strong. "Not while I'm alive." A giant reaver dropped into the tunnel, smashing the ground. The air shook with the impact. Dust flew everywhere. Its 6 glowing eyes scanned the darkness until they locked onto the children. It roared, its voice echoing like thunder in a small cave. 2 more. Reavers tore through the ceiling a moment later. The Huntresses fired instantly, bright blue and red blasts lighting the tunnel. The creatures howled and charged, claws tearing through metal pipes and stone walls. The Huntresses fought bravely, but the Reavers were strong. Too strong, and their armor-hard skin barely cracked. One Huntress was thrown into a wall. Another was pinned under a Reaver's heavy foot. Evan felt the children shaking. Their glowing eyes flickered with fear. He had no super strength, no armor, no training like the Huntresses, but he had something else, something stronger than any power inside the children. He had love. He had purpose. He had something to protect. Evan stepped forward. "Stay behind me," he said again. The leader shouted, "Evan, don't." But he was already moving. He fired at the nearest Reaver, hitting one of its eyes. The creature screamed, stumbling back. Another Reaver lunged at him, claws raised, ready to slice him apart. At the last second, the youngest girl grabbed Evan's hand. Her eyes glowed bright gold. A wave of warm light exploded from her small body. Pure energy, pure innocence, pure fear. The blast pushed the Reaver off balance, slamming it into the far wall. But the girl collapsed, exhausted, breathing fast. The Huntress leader gasped. "Their powers, they are awakening faster." Another Reaver charged straight toward the children. The silver-haired boy stepped forward this time, his eyes glowing white. "No," Evan said, grabbing him, but the boy whispered, "I won't let them hurt you." He raised his hands. A shockwave burst out, stronger than before. It blasted down the tunnel, knocking one Reaver into pieces and sending the others stumbling. But then the boy fell to his knees. His energy was almost gone. The third child, the girl with glowing lines on her arms, stepped closer to Evan. "We can protect too, but we cannot do it alone." Evan pulled all 3 of them close. "You're not alone," he said. "You're mine, and I'm going to save you." The remaining Reaver roared and charged, the biggest one, the leader of the pack. Evan stood tall, weapon raised. The Huntresses stood beside him, wounded but unbroken. Together, they faced the monster as one family. The Reaver lunged. Evan fired. The Huntresses fired. The children used the last spark of their energy. Light filled the tunnel. White, blue, gold. The Reaver screamed, shook, cracked, and finally collapsed. Its body turning cold. Silence followed. Heavy, shaking silence. Evan breathed out, his whole body trembling. The children ran into his arms, crying softly. The Huntresses lowered their weapons, shocked to still be alive. The leader spoke quietly. "You did it, human. You protected them, more than any of us ever could." Evan held the children tighter. "They're my kids. I would die before I let anyone take them." The Huntress bowed her head. Not in respect for a warrior, but respect for a father. Above them, the engines of enemy ships faded. The survivors knew what happened below. They knew the Reaver leader had fallen. They chose not to continue the hunt. The children looked up at Evan with tired, glowing eyes. "Are we safe now?" The youngest whispered. Evan kissed her forehead. "As long as I'm here, yes." And deep underground, on a dead world filled with ruins and memories, something new was born. A family, a promise, a future. Evan lived alone once, but not anymore.